So you're listening because you want to speak English with, well, more confidence right there.
Yeah.
And you probably know that not every piece of advice out there actually works.
Exactly. There's so much noise.
We get it. So today we're doing a deep dive into the strategies that genuinely make a difference for speaking English confidently.
Yeah.
We're aiming to cut through all that generic stuff.
Yeah, we're drawing on real language learning experiences, years of it, actually, plus some interesting linguistic insights.
Right. Forget just scrolling through tips. Our mission here is pretty straightforward. Give you actionable things you can do, things that will speed up your progress, and honestly, help you make better use of your time.
Because your time is valuable. And you've probably heard lots of tips before, but we want to look a bit deeper, understand why certain things work.
Why they're effective, yeah. It's about getting how language learning actually functions so you can learn, well, smarter.
Smarter, not just harder. That's the goal.
Okay, let's dive in then. One of the biggest things that came up in our research was focus. The importance of focus. Think about racehorses, with the blinkers on. It's not about limiting them generally. It's about getting them to concentrate purely on the track ahead.
And that ties directly into how our brains work, doesn't it? Attention is, well, it's finite. We only have so much.
Right.
And if you try to juggle too much grammar over here, vocab there, pronunciation, listening, speaking all at once, well, your progress just gets diluted.
Spread too thin.
Exactly. So consciously narrowing that focus lets your brain actually process things properly, consolidate the information. There's research showing that focused study, really deep study, boosts long-term memory for things like vocabulary, much more than just, scattered exposure.
That makes complete sense. And it really clicked with the story from our source material.
Yeah.
Someone living in Italy picked up quite a bit of Italian almost naturally.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
But then back home, most of it just faded away. Why? Because there wasn't that sustained, prioritized effort to keep it up. It's a really good reminder that saying, I don't have time, often just means I'm choosing not to focus on this right now. It's about where we direct our energy.
And that's a key takeaway for you listening. How are you spending your study time? Is it spread too thin? Could you maybe pick just one or two things you really want to nail in English short term and put your focus there?
Making a conscious choice, not because you have to, but because it's just more efficient, gets results faster.
Precisely.
Okay, so building on that focus idea, we also have to talk about persistence. Learning a language, it's definitely not a sprint. It's a marathon.
Oh, absolutely. That came through loud and clear.
And we all see those ads, right? Promising fluency in like 3 weeks with almost no effort.
Yeah, if only. But, the science of skill development, it shows this pattern again and again. Real expertise, music, sports, language. It takes consistent effort over a decent amount of time.
So those quick fixes.
Appealing, definitely. But they just don't match up with how our brains actually learn and really internalize complex things like language. I mean, look at the Cambridge English website estimates. They say roughly 200 hours of guided study just to move up one level on the CEFR scale.
Wow. 200 hours. That puts it in perspective.
It does. It's a more realistic benchmark.
And having that realistic expectation is so important. It seems like a huge part of sticking with it, being persistent. It's actually liking the process, enjoying the journey.
Definitely. If the stuff you're using, the topics you're learning about, if they genuinely interest you, you're just much more likely to keep going when things get tough. Because they will get tough sometimes.
Right. It stops feeling like a chore.
Exactly. If it feels like homework you dread, you're fighting yourself.
Yeah.
But if you're learning through, say, podcasts about your hobbies or articles on things you care about, or even just chatting with people online about shared interests.
And the learning itself becomes rewarding.
Right. It fuels that persistence from the inside out, intrinsically.
Okay, so to keep that persistence going, you need motivation. Our source called it finding Merjo, which I liked.
Yeah.
But those really vague goals like, I want to be fluent, they're not great fuel, are they?
No, and it's interesting how that vagueness can actually kill motivation. What does fluent even mean? It's so subjective. Without a clear target, a time frame, it feels like you're chasing smoke. That's where setting smarter goals comes in.
Yeah.
It's a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. But the or part is key too. Evaluate and revise. Your goal should evolve as you do.
Okay, so instead of just, I want to be fluent, a better goal might be, in the next 6 months, I want to be able to talk confidently about, say, 3 common work topics with my English-speaking colleagues.
Yes, that's specific. You can measure it. It seems achievable with focus. It's relevant to your job. It has a deadline. And you can check in, evaluate, and adjust if needed.
Much more concrete.
And the analogy used about feeding a pet, that's perfect for motivation.
Yeah.
It needs regular attention. You can't just set it and forget it.
So constantly reminding yourself why you're doing this.
Absolutely. Your core reasons, what will learning English unlock for you, career stuff, travel, connecting with people, personal growth.
Yeah, keeping that why visible, especially when you hit a plateau, which everyone does.
And the source also mentioned connecting with other learners, that social side.
Right. The example of joining Spanish classes while living in Spain, even though they were immersed, that shared struggle and support really boosted things.
That social dimension is powerful. It creates some accountability, gives you low-pressure practice buddies, and just shared understanding. It helps.
And celebrating wins, even small ones.
Yes. Don't forget to reward yourself for hitting those milestones. It keeps the engine running. Positive reinforcement.
Okay, so focus, persistence, motivation with clear goals. But even clear goals can feel huge, which brings us to breaking it down. Big goal, small steps.
Yeah, this is all about making that mountain feel climbable. You break the massive objective down into smaller, manageable tasks, like planning a long hike, You don't just stare at the distant peak the whole time. You focus on reaching the next viewpoint, or that lake, or the little village halfway. Each small win builds momentum. Makes you feel like you're actually getting somewhere.
The source shared that example of learning Chinese. Setting yearly goals, first basic chat, then daily conversations, then actually working in Chinese. But it started with a commitment to daily classes.
Right, those small daily actions keep you focused on the now and stop you from getting totally overwhelmed by the big picture.
So if your goal is, say, an IELTS score or participating in meetings.
You break it down. Maybe it's learning 5 new work-related words each day, or practicing one specific grammar point for 15 minutes, creating that less intimidating roadmap.
Makes sense. Now, here's something that really jumped out at me. The need for practice. Actual practice.
Oh, yes. Crucial.
It's so easy to just study, read grammar rules, read texts, passively absorb, but not actually use the language.
It's common trap.
The source mentioned studying French for years in school, but still not feeling able to actually speak it fluently in a real conversation. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Absolutely. It highlights the difference between receptive knowledge understanding and productive skills speaking and writing. You need both, but fluency comes from the productive side. It's like swimming.
How so?
You can read books about swimming strokes, watch videos, but you won't learn to swim until you actually get in the water and, splash around and practice.
Right, you have to do it. So whatever method you're using, apps, classes, self-study you need to build an active practice.
Talk to yourself in English. Try rephrasing things you hear or read. Find opportunities to speak or write, online or face-to-face.
It's that active engagement that really makes things stick and builds that speaking confidence.
Definitely. And that leads nicely into the final piece, which often gets forgotten. Review.
Ah, yes, review. Easy to skip when you feel busy.
So easy.
Yeah.
But our source really stressed how vital it is for actually remembering things long term.
Mentioned the forgetting curve, didn't it? The idea that we naturally forget stuff over time if we don't revisit it.
Exactly. The exact shape of the curve might be debated, but the basic idea holds true. Review stops the forgetting. If you learn something and never look at it again, a lot of it will just evaporate.
So that's where things like spaced repetition come in, like in language apps.
Precisely. Those apps show you words or phrases, again, just before you're likely to forget them, strengthening the memory each time. But you don't need an app to do it.
How so?
Just consciously build review into your routine. Maybe spend 5 minutes at the end of a study session recapping. Or look back at notes from a few days ago. Active recall. Pulling it back out of your brain.
The source mentioned quickly reviewing notes soon after learning, and then maybe the next day, watching or listening to something related to see that language used again in context.
Yeah, recycling the language. It's about making review a deliberate choice, not just saying, oh, I don't have time. You have to make the time for it because it makes all the other effort more effective.
So putting it all together.
Right, these 6 things. Focus, persistence, fueled by real motivation and clear evolving goals, breaking big tasks into small steps, lots of active practice, and strategic review. It's a solid framework.
Not just theories, but actual tools you can use starting now.
Exactly. Practical tools for your English journey.
So as you're thinking about all this, maybe consider this. Which one of these areas your focus? Maybe. Or your motivation habits, your practice, review.
Right.
Which one could give you the biggest boost if you just tweaked it a little bit this week?
Just one small change. Remember, it's a consistent effort guided by these principles that really leads to more confidence and, ultimately, success in speaking English. Keep at it.